While you're going here, I wanted to cover some of the more intricate internal elements of the Ching form, especially the first two postures, the standard ready position, because I notice a lot of people are rushed through this one, and there's a lot of elements that they just don't get. And they've been practicing for a long time. I mean, I watch videos and I even saw a third generation lineage Ching teacher doing things which are kind of unfathomable to me. So anyway, so I want to cover the internal aspects in getting the body right. Now, the first thing I usually notice is in our lineage especially, but it's throughout Tai Chi, especially with beginners and intermediates, is they have dead arms. Their arms are completely dead. So in seeking Sung to get totally relaxed, their arms are like this, okay? And then when you remind them they have to have space under their armpits, they do this. So they either go from completely noodle arms to what I call scarecrow. This is the scarecrow. So you're like hanging like a scarecrow. So I see that a lot, where their arms are out here in the ready position. That, of course, that's incorrect. Or, they hang dead. The other is they'll do this and then they'll bring their arms in. So you see this a lot too, which is completely also incorrect. Now, how do you get that feeling in the arms where they are correct? So no one talks about that internal feeling and the method you need to get it. I'm always about teaching the method so you have something to practice to get to the proper internals. So in the ready position, there's a lot of internals. So of course you have to ready yourself. Your feet are a little less than 45 degrees. There's space between your heels so they're not touching. Now, here is where people just go dead to relax. So their arms just hang. These are just limp noodles, and that's incorrect also. So you have to practice the 5 principles first. So I have to make my tailbone straight to suspend my head top. I have to relax the chest bone down 1/2 inch and in 1/2 inch to pluck up the back. So it's very relaxed, plucking up the back. I have to set my chin with my lower back of my skull. And then I have to get my arms not just to relax, they have to relax in the right way. And my bones have to be naturally heavy, but there's a strungness to the arms, a very light strungness. So I like to tell my students, it's as if you're pulling silk strings with your fingertips upwards. So you're also slightly tuning the tendons and the ligaments in the forearm very lightly, like a violin string. So if I relax down and then just pull silk lightly, you notice how my arms and my elbow goes out slightly, and then watch. See how my arms are now vibrating? They're just relaxed, swaying back and forth. It's as if my wrists are suspended from the ceiling by wires. That's the right feeling. So I relax down and I pull silk strings. Relax down and pull silk strings. Now this is a Tai Chi Chuan exercise. So I relax down, exhaling, pushing in the Tantian slightly, putting my tailbone straight down. I then push in the Ming Men toward the Tantian as I come up, pulling silk. Very lightly. Very light. It's a very fine stringing of the arms. So you're not using tension. So my arm is like a violin string. So the knobs on the violin where you tighten the string. So I have my arm down, I tighten it. My arms down, I tighten it. My arms down, and I tighten it. See what happens? My arms down. As I tighten gently the string, my arm is floating from the ceiling. Down, tighten it. down, tighten it. Okay, so I get that both feelings. Now when I do the Tai Chi Chuan move, my arms naturally go outwards and then I pull the string. So I lead with my shoulder first, elbow, wrist, and then out to the fingertips relaxing, and then I draw in from my fingertips upward. So my wrist energizes. So my wrist is being set and being energized. So I'll naturally bounce outwards. I do not move it with my muscles. So my arms are relaxed, they naturally bounce outward. So I'll square it more with it so you can see it. They naturally bounce outwards. So notice they're like tree limbs attached to the trunk of my body that sway in the breeze and pull the silk strings. And pull the silk strings. See if you notice that? Now there's space in my armpit and my arms are rounded. See, the outside is rounded gently. So my arms are not like this and I'm not like this. It's rounded gently. And remember, these are actually two ward-offs. We're used to seeing ward-off like this. These are two ward-offs, downward sloping ward-offs, which are more like the shoulder, the arm and the shoulder posture that are now on both sides. So you can say these are the arms and the shoulder. And when I relax the tailbone, with my head suspended, my whole body, my torso is suspended now from the ceiling. I don't know if you can see that. When I sink my tailbone lightly, now my whole body, my torso is now suspended from the ceiling. That's what it feels like. It's suspended as if from the ceiling. That's what causes that natural sway. So I'm sinking with a suspended head, suspended central line, going all the way down to my perineum, and my wrists are suspended also, like they are from the ceiling. Now that's correct. Now when you energize the fingertips this way, doing the Tai Chi Chuan move, your fingers will naturally start to tingle. The fingertips first and then the palm of the hand. Now if you completely relax the arm while leaving the bones heavy and stringing just the tendons and ligaments, that feeling will go up your arms. So now that energetic feeling begins to go up the hand into the forearm, and you eventually want it in the arm itself. So your limbs are not like a hollow log. And that's the other thing, is as a beginner, you're naturally going to have what I call dead limbs. They're going to be hollow logs. They're going to be hollow on the inside and stiff on the outside. That's a typical beginner. When you are basically relaxing with relaxed bones, and you're expanding and releasing away from the bones, and it begins to feel more like there's jelly or this substance filling your body, you'll get the natural suspension feeling if you let it go and then just lightly tune the tendons and ligaments, hardly using any strength. And then you see my hands are now suspended from the ceiling. They're floating. I get my whole body the same way to float from the ceiling. Okay, so that's the inner element, but it always comes down to one, always practicing song, dynamic somatic relaxation, always adhering to the principles, and always trying not to have deadness in your form, because deadness is deadly. It'll keep you from developing. Now, the other thing that happens is going from the first posture to the second posture, we're used to doing it a certain way. So most people, they sink, step out, shift, come back, the center. And they don't let their hands come down. So what you have to do at this point is when you come around, drop the heel of the palm as if you're pushing a log underwater. Okay, this is the higher element of Wu Ji posture. You can't leave your hands here. There's tension now in my forearms. Okay, my hands are stiff and there's tension all along my arm. I have to relax it down from the shoulder, elbow, wrist out through the fingertips, and it goes slightly forward, so it's like a whoosh. Now see what happened? My wrists are now suspended like from the ceiling by wires. Here I can't. There's tension in my arms. I have to relax them. Now they're floating. And it feels, and this is what it will feel like, and it's a good image to have in your mind, that my hands are floating on a log that's floating in water. So this log comes into existence. So you either feel that your hands are floating on this log that's floating in the water. And it has the same feeling of strings attached to my wrist, float attached to the ceiling. So you can use either image and you can get each feeling. So once you get that floating log feeling and get it really well, if you push down one side, it naturally pushes up the other. And that's the thing to work for, that feeling that if I push down one side of the log, the other side lifts up and pushes up my hand. So I can play with that. So once the log comes into existence and it actually feels like it exists, it'll do that. You can actually feel it push up the hand. Now the other thing with the log, and you can play with it in this imagery, when it comes time to lift, when I lift, I don't just lift up my arms, okay? Now you do in the yin stage. If you're a beginner and you're at the yin stage, and this is what Ben Lo taught, is you have the feeling of sinking from the inside straight down as I lift my arms up, shoulder height. Now, if your back is plucked up, you cannot lift them higher than shoulder heights. I'd have to dislocate my shoulders. So that's the test to see if your back is plucked up. If you can raise your arms above your shoulders, your back is not plucked up. That's the test. My back is plucked up, I cannot. I'd have to dislocate my arms to raise them. Okay, so that's always the test. But if I get the log and I slightly push the log forward, it rolls under my wrists and I let it float. Now my wrists are actually floating on a log. See, it's floating on a log. And this is the yin stage, the yang stage, excuse me. When the yang energy arises, your arms will actually go up on their own. It's as if you do not use any muscle. So this is an advanced stage, okay? In the yin stage, which all beginners have to go to and go through, because you need a very strong yin base, you will raise your arms, trying to relax them so they're as heavy as possible. As Ben Lo said, your arms should weigh 50 pounds each. So you're practicing in the yin stage of raising your arms, using as little muscle as possible, naturally heavy through relaxation, okay? So if you're a beginner, stick to the yin stage. You don't want to jump the shark and go to the yang stage, because then you will not have a strong basis. You have to go through the yin stage, even though it means opening, relaxing, and really working the legs. You'll have pain in the legs until they finally pop. So your legs are like popcorn. Eventually the kernel pops and there's a difference. And that's amazing when it happens. But in the yang stage, I float my hands on the log. And as I have a feeling of sinking, the water rises and the log naturally floats up. My arms float and hang on the log. Then I roll the log over, sinking the elbows. Then the log floats toward me, and then I sink the log. And you should have that feeling. Now, the other important thing that people always get wrong is you don't at the higher stage, do not pull your wrist back. In fact, as a beginner, that's a mistake. We were all taught, and I was taught this too, that after you raise shoulder height, you roll the fingertips up. Now you pull back the wrists. Now see what my body did? I created a vector behind me. So if I pull back the wrists, I naturally do this, which means it makes it very easy for someone to push me backwards. So that's an error. I don't teach it that way anymore. And if you teach the Ching's form, do not pull back the wrists. So how do you get your wrist to go back? I sink my elbow with the energy from the elbow going to the bottom of my feet. Then I sink the energy back to the bottom of my feet more. And then I lengthen the spine. So I come up in the yin stage, beginner stage, naturally heavy. I naturally heavily sink my elbows straight down with the energy going to the bottom of my feet. I then sink the elbows down to the bottom of my feet even more. And then I push the heel of the palm coming up, lengthening from the perineum, actually the tailbone, up to the top of my head. So as I sink, I compress the rhumai channel. As I come up, I expanding the back channel. Okay? But like I said, never pull back the wrist, because that's what you do. Almost everyone does it. So if you're teaching, don't teach your students that. Teach them to sink the elbow. So the energy of the elbow is going to the bottom of the feet. So you should have a feeling of constant sinking through the center of your body. Now, the other question becomes, and this is advanced, when do you stop your arm? Okay? So in the beginner's phase, you don't know when to stop your arms, so people jam their arms back. Okay? That's a big no-no too. Because now I have tension. See the tension in my arm? And I've jammed it. Now I've got to unjam it to push down. So you see that a lot. People jam their arms and then they have to push down. Okay? Or the other option is they bring back their elbows past their baseline. So the elbows never go past. Even in double push, your elbows don't go this way. I sink the energy below my feet. Now, if you're very sensitive, you reach a point where it's like the chi backs up. So it feels like, say you're wearing the Han robe. At a certain point, it feels like the fabric bunches up and then wants to stop you. That's the natural point of stopping. It suddenly feels like that's it. And if you notice, it's about 3-4 inches away from total locking. So you have to sink that energy and then come to feel when it's like fabric bunching up wants to stop you. And then if you notice, as I bring my wrist up, watch my elbow. There's another sinking of the elbow. And then down. So there's a natural cocking of the elbow right here. So there's a sinking of the elbow here, there's a sinking of the elbow here, and then there's a sinking of the elbow here. Okay? So there's 3 sinkings of the elbow in that one move. So I go up, sink the elbow with the energy to the bottom of my feet. I sink the elbow with the energy at the bottom of my feet. Then I sink the elbow with the energy at the bottom of my feet. Then I push the log down. Okay? So there's 3 elbow sinks. And always think of it as relaxing and sinking the elbow, relaxing and sinking the elbow, relaxing and sinking the elbow, and then push the log down. So as a beginner, you can't feel the log yet. Just feeling a sinking inside. Make your arms as relaxed and heavy as possible, but still sink the elbow, sink the elbow, sink the elbow, pushing down. But it's a light pushing, it's not I see people do that. You're not pushing down a huge floating boat. Okay? It's very light. Okay? Now, what I saw also, and this was a teacher doing it, is when she came back, she stayed here, elbows out. Okay, let me try it again. I'll center. It's hard to get into the frame. Let me try it again. And she left her elbows out. They're cocked. See how they're out? And then she raised the arms like this. And to do it, she had to concave her chest. So that completely distorts your back. So those kind of things cause stiffness in the body, and it causes stiffness in your shoulder. Your shoulder should be completely relaxed. So if I'm going to do the move, my arms floating, I turn, shift back, then my arms sink, and then float. So my elbows aren't out. And then the energy goes forward with my fingertips. Sink the elbows, sink the elbows, sink the elbows. Okay? So hopefully you'll understand that. The other thing is, when do you make the step from the first posture to the second? Now, when you're taught as a beginner, you sink, and then you step out. Then you shift, right? That's normal. Instead, when you get the Chansu Jing energy, the twining, circling energy that Chen Tai Chi talks about all the time, it's a circling energy that naturally goes out. Okay? So let me center better. So as I turn and my foot turns, that is the energy. So I don't stop, it's a complete circuit, comes around, and then comes down. So the step out is part of the turn. So as my waist turns, it steps naturally. So it's a natural turning which causes that step. So I don't turn, stop, step. That's the beginner's form, okay? Now it's completely okay if you're a beginner, but if you've been doing Tai Chi 10 years or you're teaching the form and you still do this, that's incorrect, okay? So when you're practicing on your own, it's a turning that causes that step. It's a turning, right? It's a turning that causes that step. Now, hopefully that's been insightful. Have a great practice.